This is a model lesson using the CAT strategy. I'm going to share the screen. One second. The first thing that I need to do when I'm going to do a CAT lesson is I can either go to our Google Classroom under the CAT lesson plans for 4th and 5th grade ELA. You have them all here. So for 5th grade, here's Module 1. In order to open it, because it is a zip drive, because it's a lot of files, you want to do Open With Zip Extractor, and then it's going to pull that up for you. And then I went ahead and downloaded Lesson 1. You can either, let me move this, download the doc, and it's going to go into your downloads, then you can print it, and that's your lesson plan, or you can save it to the drive. So that's just up to you. So that's where you will get your lesson plans from. That's going to cover almost everything, but it will not cover writing or the very end portion of the ELA block, which you'll see here in just a minute. I also have the CAT materials here. So that's, again, you're going to open that up with the zip drive. The thing you'll see me use today is the decision tree poster. The rest of the materials are print materials that we can order from the CAT folks, and they will send those over to us at no cost if you don't already have the posters. But you probably do. They're probably still somewhere in your classroom or with the other teacher. We also have a CAT daily routine slide that you'll see me use today. It's editable Google Slides that you could put your lesson plan on so that you don't have to constantly be referring back to a paper copy. For the later part of the year, we have some test prep resources and test prep task cards. I think that's pretty much everything that's in here. Oh, and we have some station ideas or small group practices. So all of that is there. You can also find all of this by going to their website, it.literacy.io. You likely have an account from when you first signed up. If you need to do the forgot password, you can do that. Otherwise, just log in, and all of the resources that I just showed you are under teacher resources. Okay. Let me see here. Let me come to this. So today I'm going to be modeling Module 1, Lesson 1 from 5th grade, Cultures in Conflict. I'll probably be stepping in and out of my curriculum coordinator role into my teacher role just so we can make sure that we're seeing everything. Let me do a stop share just to make sure I am on the right page, because sometimes it doesn't switch. As you can see on these slides, I've made a copy of it, and there's timers on there that are like from YouTube. So in order to keep yourself, within the time frame, you can click on those, and that will help you make sure that your ELA timing is down so you have enough time for everything. Okay. So let's go ahead and start the model. So today, boys and girls, we are going to be looking at a new module called Cultures in Conflict. In this module, you're going to learn how sometimes two different cultures may come into conflict or disagreement and what might happen in those instances. Today, we're going to start out with a new read, and let me grab it real quick, called The Lewis and Clark Expedition. Now, as I read today, by the end of the lesson, you should be able to identify the text structure. We're going to use a decision tree to be able to do that, and find a main idea. I'll show you how to do that using sentence stems. Then you'll create a summary by adding supporting key details to the main idea. And last, you'll be answering inferencing questions about the story that we read today. While we read today, we have two new vocabulary words. The first word is report. Report is a verb. It means to describe or give a written or oral account of something in great detail. Another way to say it, or a synonym, is to describe, to recount, or to tell. Our second vocabulary word is destiny. Destiny is a noun, meaning a course of events that's bound to happen due to some other higher power or authority. Some synonyms are fortune or fate. As I read today, listen for these two new words, report and destiny. What was the first one? Report, yes. And the second one was destiny. Let's listen for the words in the story, and we're going to touch our ear as we hear them. Listen and follow along on your copy as I read today. I want you to also listen for any words that are signaling us that might help us determine what the text structure might be. So we may be listening for problems, we might be listening for causes and effects. So listen for words that signal us to think, something might be about to go wrong. Let's check it out. Follow along as I read. Lewis and Clark Expedition. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson guided a splendid piece of foreign diplomacy through the U.S. Senate, the purchase of the Louisiana Territory from France. After the Louisiana Purchase Treaty was made, Jefferson initiated an exploration of the newly purchased land and the territory beyond the Great Rock Mountains in the west. Jefferson chose his personal secretary, Meriwether Lewis, an intelligent and literate man who also possessed skills as a frontiersman. Lewis, in turn, solicited the help of William Clark, whose abilities as draftsman and frontiersman were even stronger. Lewis so respected Clark that he made him a co-commanding captain of the expedition, even though Clark was never recognized as such by the government. Together they collected a diverse military corps of discovery that would be able to undertake a 2-year journey to the great ocean. Okay, so let me pause. First, in the first paragraph, I understood that the U.S. made the Louisiana Purchase while Thomas Jefferson was president, and he got together in the second paragraph a group of 2 men to go out and take a look at the land, and that was Lewis, his last name, and Clark. Let's keep reading. Third paragraph. Jefferson hoped that Lewis and Clark would find a water route linking the Columbia and Missouri rivers. The water link would connect the Pacific Ocean with the Mississippi River system, thus giving the new western land access to port markets out of the Gulf of Mexico and to eastern cities along the Ohio River and its minor tributaries. At the same time, American and European explorers had only penetrated what would become each end of the Lewis and Clark Trail up the Missouri several miles to the trapper headquarters at Fort Mandan and up to the Columbia just a little bit over 100 miles to a point little beyond present-day Portland, Oregon. The Lewis and Clark expedition paddled its way down the Ohio as it prepared the expedition to be launched officially from Camp Wood just outside St. Louis in the summer of 1804. That summer and fall, the company of explorers paddled and pulled themselves upstream, northwest on the Missouri River to Fort Mandan, a trading post, where the Corps of Discovery set up camp, wintered, and prepared for the journey to the Pacific. When the spring of 1805 brought high water and favorable weather, the Lewis and Clark expedition set out on the next leg of its journey. They traveled up the Missouri to present-day Three Forks, Montana, wisely choosing to follow the westernmost tributary, the Jefferson River. This route delivered the explorers to the doorstep of the Shoshone Indians, who were skilled at traversing the Great Rock Mountains with horses. Once over the Bitter-Root Mountains, the Corps Discovery shaped canoe-like vessels that transported them swiftly downriver to the mouth of the Columbia, where they wintered from 1805 to 1806 at Fort Clatsop on the present-day Oregon side of the river. With journals in hand, Lewis, Clark, and the other members of the expedition returned to St. Louis by September 1806 to report their findings to Jefferson. Along the way, they continued to trade with few goods they still had with the Indians and set up diplomatic relations with the Indians. Additionally, they recorded their contact with Indians and described, and at times drew, the shape of the landscape and the creatures of this western world, new to the white man. In doing so, they fulfilled many of Jefferson's wishes for the expedition. Along the way, William Clark drew a series of maps that were remarkably detailed, noting and naming rivers and creeks, significant points in the landscape, the shape of the river shore, and spots where the Corps spent each night or camped or portaged for longer periods of time. Later, explorers used these maps to further probe the western portion of the continent. The expedition of the Corps of Discovery shaped a crude route to the waters of the Pacific and marked an initial pathway for the new nation to spread westward from ocean to ocean, fulfilling what would become, to many Americans, an obvious destiny. Over the next 2 centuries, the new Americans and many immigrants would wash across the central and western portions of what would eventually become the contiguous 48 states. This wave of development would significantly transform virgin forests and grasslands into a landscape of cities, farms, and harvested forests, displacing fauna such as the buffalo and squeezing the Indians who survived onto reservations. And then we won't read the last part. Okay, so let's think about what we just read. We're going to first find the text structure. So in order to do that, we're going to take a look at the decision tree. Let's ask ourselves, was there a problem in this story? So let's think. And we can go back to the article to help ourselves. I don't think I remember any type of a problem in this story. So let me come back to the decision tree, and I would say, no, there really isn't a problem. The next question is there some cause and effect, or is there anything being compared? Nothing was being compared to one another, but there was some cause and effect, so I would say yes. I'm going to ask myself if the effect happened because something else happened, or when and if something occurred, then something happened. So I know that the thing that happened was the United States bought the Louisiana Purchase, and then Thomas Jefferson sent out Lewis and Clark to explore that area. So to me, that's a cause, the Louisiana Purchase, and the effect was the exploration. So I'm going to say that this text structure would be cause and effect. All right, so you can see here we have our sentence stem. This is going to help us write our main idea. It just says the cause is blank and the effect is blank. So using your interactive notebook, now that we use the decision tree, you can also use your bookmark with your sentence stems on it, and I want you to go ahead and write out your main idea now that we've decided that the text structure is cause and effect. So go ahead and do that. So I'll give them about 5 minutes to write their main idea. Here's the check sheet. They're going to use their sentence stem. They're going to write their main idea and then compare it with the teachers. So they're going to go first, and then I'll show them mine. Next, we'll answer a multiple choice question, and we'll use that main idea that we wrote to find the best choice. So let's take a look. Okay, so then now they've written, and now I'm going to reveal mine. Okay, so here is my main idea. I said, the cause is Jefferson made the Louisiana Purchase Treaty. The effect is he sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to explore the newly purchased land and report their findings. Now, yours doesn't have to be the exact same words as mine, but as long as you understand that the cause was the Louisiana Purchase and the effect was that exploration with Lewis and Clark, then you are correct. Now, let's use what we wrote to answer a multiple choice main idea. I know that when I'm reading through my examples here, or my choices rather, that I need to see the elements of what I've written from my main idea appear in the answer choices. If I don't see most of what I've written here, not in the exact same words, but with the exact same ideas, then it's probably not the best choice. So let's see. The question is, what's the best main idea of this selection? Let's look at the choices. A, because Jefferson made the Louisiana Purchase with France, the business deal became famously known as the Louisiana Purchase Treaty that brought the United States much more land. Now, that does have the bit of the cause in there. I see the bit about the Louisiana Purchase, but I don't see anything about the effect for the exploration. So I would probably say no. Let's look at B. Because Jefferson made the Louisiana Purchase with France, he decided to send Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to explore the newly purchased land and report what they discovered about the land. Okay, that sounds a lot like mine. It has the cause, it has the effect, so that's a possibility. B is a possibility. Let's keep looking. President Jefferson, Meriwether Lewis, and William Clark were compared on frontiersman skills, artistic ability, skill with diplomacy, and roles of authority within the country. That's an easy no for me because we did not compare William Clark and Meriwether Lewis, and we certainly didn't compare President Jefferson on his frontiersman skills or anything like that. So that's a no. D, Unfortunately, President Jefferson did not know much at all about the land he purchased in the Louisiana Purchase from France, and he needed somebody to go learn further about it. Well, that is partly true. Yes, he did want people to go and learn further about it, but I feel like my best choice would be B. So at this point, I would have let them go ahead and make their choice, and if they chose B, then yes, you are correct. Next, we're going to create our summary. In order to create the summary, we're going to keep our main idea what it was, and we're just going to add supporting details for our cause and supporting details for our effect so that we make sure we have a proper summary with just the details that we need. So the steps are: use your main idea, add details to support each part, so we have the cause and the effect, and then you're going to compare with mine, and then we'll answer a multiple choice question. And we'll use our summary to find the best choice, the same way we did with the main idea. So I'm going to give them about 10 minutes to go ahead and write that summary. Once we are finished, then I'm going to show mine. Okay, so boys and girls, here's mine. Let's take a look. The black part is my main idea. That's the part that was already there. Let's look at the red. This is the portion that I added. So first we had our cause about the Louisiana Purchase, and I added, as president, he made this purchase of land from France in 1803. So that tells when it was purchased. Then I have my effect is sending Lewis and Clark to explore the purchased land. And I added, he hoped that a route via water would be found linking the Columbia and the Missouri rivers. That's why I had them explore. Lewis had strong literacy and frontiersman skills, and Clark was skilled even more so with draftsman and frontiersman abilities. So the men worked together to travel up the Missouri River to Montana and on to the mouth of Columbia. The explorers later returned to St. Louis to share their findings to President Jefferson in 1806. So I added the bit about the fact that they were good with literacy and being out on a frontier, and that he was the draftsman, so he can make maps. So if yours looked a little bit like mine, it doesn't have to look the exact same, then you've got it right. So we do have our main idea that we leveraged, and then we added a supporting detail for each. Let's use what we've got here to choose the best multiple choice answer from this question. We are going to use what we wrote from our summary to find the best choice. So it needs to sound a little bit like it. And look, I forgot to make it not red. So the correct answer is already red. Please remember, don't do that. Don't make my mistake. So I did not type all of this. Whenever I've got my lesson plan downloaded, which I would pull it up for you, but it's not going to show, I just copied and pasted this into it, so I'm not typing all of this. You can also, if you don't want to use the slides, just provide this as their like a daily work, and they can circle their best answer. There's many different ways to do the multiple choice part. So at this point, we would read through each one, we would eliminate the answer choices that do not match what we read, and we would choose the best selection, which was, after purchasing the land from France in 1803, President sent Lewis and Clark to explore the area, hoping they would find a water route linking Columbia and Missouri rivers. We had that. Thankfully, Lewis had skill as a frontiersman, and Clark even more so. We had that. The men traveled up the Missouri River to Montana and on to Columbia, and as a result, the men were able to return in 1806 to report their discoveries to President Jefferson. That almost exactly matches what we wrote. So then we are finished with our summary, and next we are going to move on to answering inferencing questions. Today we have 3 different ones that you can do all 3, or you can do just one. These are excellent for turn-in talks because oftentimes they're open-ended. So we might do a turn-in talk on the open-ended piece, and I would ask, why might it have been a good idea for Lewis to place Clark as his co-commanding captain on the expedition? Share why you do or not agree with this decision. So they would turn and talk and come up with their reasons. We also have a multiple choice. All of this came from the lesson plan. You don't have to create any of it. It's already done for you. They're going to use their sentence stems resources to help with words in the question in the same testing language. So where's my question? Here we go. Based upon the results of the exploration of Lewis and Clark, how do you think President Jefferson felt about their work? Was he worried, disappointed, angry, or pleased? And then there's also a vocabulary inferencing question that you can choose. The final paragraph of the text mentions that some animals were displaced. But what could it mean to be displaced? Let's first look at the word structure of the root is place, which means to put or set somewhere, while the prefix is dis, meaning apart or away from. And the suffix ed simply shows us that this is an action. To displace was done in the past. Use such knowledge to help you form your answer about what it means to be displaced. So you've got a variety of inferencing questions there. You do not have to do them all. If you have time, that's great. And then last, great job being a comprehension detective. And you see this last slide says additional standards for extension or exit tickets or fluency homework passages. So in order to find out what else I needed to teach in this lesson, I took a look at the Great Minds lesson itself. In the welcome and launch, we have our lesson goals. Let me go down to it. Oh, I think I skipped it. Sorry. Up here. There we go. They want them to generate text-based questions during this first read to support and monitor their understanding of the text. To me, that wasn't the greatest learning goal, to be able to generate a question today. So I'm sticking with just the main idea, and I'm saving in the summary and all the other things that we did. They were to determine the overall main idea. We did that, so check. And then last, they're doing a vocabulary deep dive and clarifying the meaning of the word culture. They're going to complete a Frayer model on Handout 1C. So with that, I would go ahead and let them do Handout 1C. We would talk more about culture. They would complete that Frayer model. And then they are given Handout 1D, which is a vocabulary study guide. They can take that home or put it in their notebook. And I always try to let them reread what I read to them today. So Handout 1A would then be for them to work on their fluency with. So they would complete the Frayer model with the last 10 minutes. There's probably only a couple minutes left after that. Set a timer and let them read. And then lastly, it's time for your writing lesson. You've got 30 minutes. So whatever the upcoming focusing question task is, we would start in planning that or writing that. So in order to do that, I would say now's your chance to express yourself. Today we're working on whatever they're writing. Watch me. I'm going to model how I would plan or how I would write paragraph 1 or whatever it may be, and then it's your turn. So I have use your resources, anchor charts, interactive notebooks, planning sheets, graphic organizers. There's just a little reminder on there, and there is that 30 minutes there that you can do your model in, usually for about 10 minutes, and then the last portion is theirs for them to go ahead and do their writing. Okay, I think I went over everything that I intended to. Let me take one more look. And oh, the portion I did want to show you also, let me see if I can still do it. I think I've closed it out, my downloads. Let me get it from here. I was going to go ahead and show you what the lesson plans look like. So they look like this. You have links to TEKS and Common Core state standards. Don't use those because we don't use those standards. We use Arkansas state standards. But everything else was on here. So we started with the introduction. I told them we're going to talk about cultures and conflict. They've also written one for you. So if you want to just read this one, you can just read that one. The vocabulary they've already chosen for you, report and destiny. And they have at the back a matrix. So we have report and destiny are right here. It's going to tell me that it's a verb. Here's the definition, and down here are some synonyms or antonyms if there were any. It also tells you how to say it in Spanish. So all of that's done for you. I said for them to listen for any signaling words to see if there was any kind of a problem or hints at the text structure. Then we wrote our main idea. You do not have to come up with this. It's already here for you. So if you're using the slides, just grab it. Just copy and paste it onto the slide and then adjust the font for how you want it. Multiple choice question, again, you're not creating it and the correct answer is going to be in red. So if you're putting it on the slides, don't make my mistake. Remember to change that part to black and then they won't know which one, but then you'll reveal it. So your lesson plans essentially for the year are basically done. The ones that are going to be a little bit more tricky is when you get into the chapter books. They have not done all of those for you. Let me do this. I think I still need to stop share. There we go. Okay. They have not done all of those for you. The way that they wrote the chapter book ones in modules 1 and 2, they wrote like an overall main idea of the entire book and an overall summary. So once you get your feet wet, you'll have to have them decide on the text structure and the main idea of just today's chapter for what you read. They did a little bit better once we got to Module 3, and I know for sure Module 4, and that's when you'll get into the Kate Plus lessons. And in Kate Plus lessons, you'll be covering other standards besides just main idea, summary, and inferencing and text structure. But in those lessons, they're already written for you. They're going to show you how to use what you've done with the CAT strategy, with the main idea and the summary, and how to leverage that to answer even more types of questions that are multiple choice that you would see on state tests. So they use that type of language that they would encounter on a state test and show them how they are leveraging that main idea to answer even other types of questions like theme, like things about characterization, stuff like that. So you'll be hitting even more standards along the way once you get into modules 3 and 4. But for modules 1, it starts right there with lesson 1, but we also have other lessons within the website to show them how to do CAT, basically. Like there's one that's on apples that's great for the first week of school. That's a quick read, and you're showing them how they're going to use the decision tree and the posters to complete the sentence stems. So all of that is there for you. I'll most likely link that in. Well, no, I can't link it into our pacing guide because it's all under lock and key. So we will have to get those on our own. But do check out those or reach out to me next year when it's time to start, and we can show you where they're at. But they're on the literacy.io website. Just their beginning of the year welcome to school passages that help them understand how to use that text structure to complete the main idea and summary. All right, I think that's it.